Hi everybody, Chris Titley here and welcome to Scoreboard.
This episode is powered by SwiftX, Australia's top-rated crypto exchange and proudly homegrown, just like many of the athletes and business leaders we feature on Scoreboard.
Hi, it's Chris Titley here. On today's episode of Scoreboard, the podcast, I am joined by Dan Merritt. Dan, thanks so much for being part of this series and what I believe is your first long-form podcast.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me on board. And appreciate having the chat.
Mate, we're sitting here in October of 2025, late October. How's your 2025 been and what is Dan Merritt up to these days?
Yeah, 2025 has been good. I've recently moved down to Adelaide, South Australia. So I was up in Brisbane for 20 years playing AFL and coaching up there. And then, before that, grew up on the Gold Coast. So I've moved down to Adelaide for work and working for Port Adelaide Football Club. It's going really well. What I'm doing down here is I'm assistant coach for the AFLW, and also I'm an assistant coach for their SANFL team. It's good. It's good to be back in football. I took a few years away from football and I went into sales. I probably was just trying to find my way for a little bit there, and it's good to be back in the footy bubble, and I'm really enjoying my time at Port.
Nice. A couple of things out of that. In a trivia question in a previous podcast, I asked about the four teams that have scored over 100 points in a game this year, and Port was one of them in the AFLW. Mate, have you been helping on that front?
I'm actually in charge of defense, and it's not going that well. It was funny when early in the year I saw a few teams kicking above 100 points, and I thought, man, I don't know if we're capable of that. And then literally like 2 weeks later, we just come out and put 100 on the board. And at that time when we did it, it was the record score. But then literally 24 hours later, North Melbourne went and broke it, as they're doing at the moment in the AFLW. They're breaking all the records. And,
there you go. And they got close in the weekend there, mate. It was a 94, I think it was.
Yeah. We got close again, which again is like really awesome for our team and our confidence that we're capable of kicking such big scores. And I think it's just great for the game as well. No one wants to see 2 goals to 3 goals. Like both teams, I think Hawthorn ended up kicking like 60 points as well. So it was a great scoring game.
And Dan, you mentioned that you sort of were in and out of footy, broadly speaking. I'm keen to understand your relationship with footy and whether that's changed over time.
Yeah, it definitely did at the end of my career, 2016. My body was pretty broken, but I was probably mentally pretty fatigued as well. And I remember finishing in 2016. It'd been a couple of tough years at Brisbane, and playing fullback in a team that's not that successful can be pretty draining on the mentally. But at the end of my career, I really didn't want anything to do with footy, and I was really happy to step away and freshen up. So I decided to go into a sales job and work sales, tribal sports, selling sports apparel, and then I actually went back to the club and started selling sponsorship and like corporate boxes and stuff. I did that for about 4 years, and then I went and worked for Caterpillar selling excavators, as they were a sponsor of the club at the time. And I thought, let's challenge myself, but that challenge was a little bit too far and too deep for myself. So that was a real eye opener, doing that job, and it was actually quite stressful, and to the point where it almost broke me, where I really had to sit back after doing that job and think, what are you doing with your life, and what do you want to do? And then that little bit of time of reflection and that point in my life, I was probably, I would have been late 30s, a couple of kids, and And yeah, I think myself and my wife just sat down and then thought, all right, I love footy. I love coaching. I've been doing footy for 20 years. Why am I not using that experience to find my next career? And so, yeah, I got back into coaching. But the only job that was available was in South Australia. So, yeah, I took a gamble and headed down here, not to work for Port, but to work for Sturt Footy Club as a development coach, running their junior programs. And then from Sturt, I wasn't actually there for very long when Port knocked on my door and asked me to come help them.
Dan, your relationship with footy and fabulous to describe the honesty and transparency around a person that's played 200 games and then sort of falls out of love with it. The deep connection back to your youth potentially about why you played footy and the fun that you had. Is that sort of you've connected the dots now to see kids and adults play footy and enjoying themselves and being a part of that?
Yeah, I suppose I was a bit of a special case where I grew up playing rugby league and a bit of cricket. And I do have an older brother, but he's like 10 years older. So it was really like I'm pretty much a single child. So it was me literally like out the front bowling a cricket ball against the wall or hitting the cricket ball in the sock. Hanging from the roof, that sort of thing. So,
To get the tape out with the tennis ball at Christmas time and do a little
yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, I suppose I always dreamed of being a professional sports person, but I never was really good enough. So, through my cricket, I was okay. I made like local rep teams, but never could make a state team or anything. In rugby league, yeah, I just wasn't big enough and used to get smashed all the time. So, I always had this dream, like I wanted to be a professional sports person, but really didn't think I'd ever get there. And I only started playing AFL in year 12. So about halfway through year 12, I started playing. And then, yeah, I really loved it. But I was trying to I remember at the time, like, I didn't want to hang my hopes on it too much. And it was probably my personality a little bit where I'm a little bit pessimistic where I try not to get my hopes up too much because usually if I do, they get crushed. So I always like was trying to play it cool, like, yeah, I like footy and we'll just see where it goes. And so, yeah, I was lucky enough that I showed some potential and within 12 months of playing AFL, I ended up getting drafted to the Brisbane Lions.
And two questions on the back of that. One being, did you find your position straight away when you sort of in grade 12, you're 16 or 17? Like, there's lots of positions in footy that you can kind of go for. Did one creep out to you, or did someone say you should do this?
Yeah, I was actually really lucky that I had no idea how to really play AFL or what position I was meant to be playing. So they just threw me in the ruck, which is the spot in the middle where you run up and try and tap the ball or punch the ball as far as you can, and then just follow the ball around the field. So I started that position, and I think because I remember I said I was too small for rugby league, but then in AFL, I actually was a good size. As I got to year 12, I grew a little bit, and then yeah, I just literally followed the ball around, and then I got drafted as a forward and a ruck, and then when I got to the Lions, like they'd won two premierships in a row. When I was there, they won their third, and they got to a fourth grand final. And their side's like possibly the greatest side of all time. So that ruck forward position, there was absolute stars in those positions, and I just kind of had to wait my time. And I'm probably skipping ahead a little bit here, but I tried to make myself into a forward and ruck, and I probably just wasn't good enough in those two positions. And it was really, I was playing reserves, and it was around the time like Justin Lepich had was retiring, and he said, "Mate, I'm not going to be here any longer." And Justin Lepage played centre half back, and Mel Michael played fullback at that stage, and they were both kind of retiring. And I remember Leopard just saying, "Mate, I reckon just have a go at this back line, because I reckon you really suit it, like your body type and the way you play really suit it. Have a go at that." And then kind of from there, I was able to find my spot in the team, where previously, so when I got drafted, I didn't play for my first 2 years. And then the next 2 years, I was in and out of the side, wasn't really good enough to maintain my spot in the ones. And then as soon as I went into the back line, everything clicked for me, and I was able to go on and play 200 games.
That's remarkable in terms of like just finding your feet, I suppose, and then finding some advice from people and timing and place and all these things that happen in life, I suppose, a little bit of luck, but also some skill. Your first game for the Lions, do you remember it? Is it there? Is it clear?
Yeah, very clear. It was in 2005, and we played Port Adelaide, funnily enough, in Adelaide. So I was actually born in Adelaide, and then me, mum and brother moved up to the Gold Coast when I was about 2. So not a great place for a redhead to grow up on the Gold Coast. But yeah, back to my game against Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide had beaten the Lions in that 4th grand final the year before, so there was a bit of energy and a bit of spite about that. I think from that game, a few boys got suspended for being in fights, so it was a pretty fiery game. And yeah, I remember actually, like, I played in the ruck and forward that game, but I remember just before the bounce, there was like this wicked like windstorm. It was like a tornado, and it was like, I just remember being first game, obviously really anxious, but when that big storm came through, I was like, it was a bit like, is the world ending? But we didn't end up winning, but it was great to be in Adelaide too, because my grandma was down here and a few relatives, so it was good to play in front of them.
And mate, the skills that you have learnt from rugby league and cricket, and then adapted being a forward and a ruck, but then taking that to the back and being the best in your craft. What were some of the superpowers? What were some of the skills that you look back on your career and you realise you were very good at, and you refined and refined and refined?
Yeah. I think initially just being that, having those aspirations as a kid, like to be the best and then to play at the highest level. And then when you get the opportunity, not taking that for granted. I wasn't skillful whatsoever. I wasn't really fit either. I wasn't like a very good long distance runner. What I was good at is I was combative. And I think that's from my rugby league days. I was super aggressive and I was quick. And so, being the size that I am, I'm 195, and I used to play at like 105 kilos. Being quick at that size, and then also being aggressive and combative, I used to like feed on that, like being quite intimidating and making my teammates stand taller. And I used to love like that aggressive side of the game. I probably wouldn't be able to play the way I used to now, but I think at that time, being that aggressive and that big really helped me play my position for a long time. And again, I wasn't like, I remember when I used to get, if I ever marked the ball and was about to kick it, the opposition would yell out, let him kick. And then like, I remember like it would get in my head so bad, but I was just not very skillful. But in the end, and I tell a lot of kids now, it's like one of the big things, you be as skillful as you want, but if you're not competitive and you haven't got like that fight in you, like I've seen kids come in all the time that are super skilled, super fit, but if they haven't got that fight and that dog inside them, like to fight and scrap and compete all day, it's really hard to to stay at that level for a long period of time.
I've heard it described as your inner mongrel, right, or a bit of a street fighter as well. And when it comes to business and pricing and competitiveness, etc. Where do you reckon you got that from? Was that from the rugby league, or was it from like growing up or watching things? Where did that inner mongrel come from?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of the rugby league. Like I think naturally, I'm a bit of a fiery redhead. So, but then I remember um, one of my reserves coach. So our reserves coach, Craig Britton, at times, because I grew up on the Gold Coast, like I was a little bit relaxed when I first came to the club, and I remember him saying like, "Mate, you're a big bloke. You got to play like a big bloke. You can't be relaxed, or you can't be like that laconic kind of character, or you're not going to make it." And then I remember I started doing some boxing as well, boxing training. We used to do boxing during the week. Little shout out to Chopper Burgess there up in Queensland, but that really drove then that combative. And then another thing that used to happen is like when I used to get tired, I'd drop my bundle. So I'd get tired, I'd stop thinking, I wouldn't compete as hard. I couldn't, my skills weren't as good, and I just couldn't think through like situations. And then I found by doing boxing, when I was tired, if I dropped my hands, the boxing coach would punch me in the face. And then it was like, keep your hands up, keep concentrating, like you do your combos while you were tired. And it's just like, can I think when I'm fatigued? And I think working through that and finding that balance also helped me, because on the field, there's so many things that are happening, different matchups, people going everywhere. And if you can think and be calm when you're fatigued and tired, when your body's screaming at you, like saying, "Mate, I just want to stop." If you can work through that pain, I found that really helped.
Did you love the battle? Like the big name players that you're marking, the marquee players, the guys that are kicking 6, 10 goals a game, and were you like, yeah, bring it on?
Yeah, so that was my job. So I each week I would play on like a Hall of Famer from the other team, and I'm just a mug, right? I'm just like not skillful, not fit. Um, I literally just compete every game, and I'm against these superstars. And it was like every week I was the underdog. And the game of AFL, like it's shaped around forwards. It's not shaped around defenders. Like no one wants to see the defender win, right? It's all about the full forward kicking goals. And so each week I was that underdog, and I used to love it. Like, and every time I'd go to an opposition ground, like, and because I'd stand in the goal square, like near the goals, the opposition cheer squad, like every week they'd be into me, like telling me how bad I am, like telling me how much of a mug. And at the start, it was like, oh, this is a lot. Like, and then in the end, I used to love it. And then I'd turn around, give them a wink or give them a thumbs up just to know that I'm hearing what they're saying. And it was just, yeah, each week was a great battle. I think in the end, though, like it wore me down to the point I was like, when I was getting beaten up every week, like I used to just have this fire burning inside of like competing every week. And I think by the end, like that fire kind of, it burnt out, and I was exhausted.
Two questions on the back of that. One being, who was the one that you loved playing against the most and challenged against the most? And secondly, we'll get on to some of your teammates then who have gone on to premiership glory, and seeing Brisbane become potentially up there with that three-peat team in terms of one of the greatest teams of all time, potentially. Keen to hear your comments on that. But we'll go back to first question around who you loved marking.
Yeah, so love-hate relationship, right? But I always say I was fortunate enough to play on Barry Hall a lot. And again, like when you talk intimidation, I don't think there's anyone more intimidating when he was in his prime, because he was genuinely scary. But it was always a good challenge. And I think he'd beat me up most times, but I might have got him once or twice. And like when you win those nights, yeah, it's an amazing feeling. I'd have to match up on Buddy Franklin, who's the goat, almost like one of the goats. again, just athletically freaky. Like I always rated like my defenders. I mean, my opposition forwards, like how much sleep am I losing the night before? And so Barry Hall, I am not sleeping. Buddy Franklin, I am not sleeping a wink. And then there's some nights where, you'd go, oh, I reckon I've got him covered tomorrow. But one of the most underrated forwards that I reckon was a guy called Josh Kennedy from West Coast. So when I used to do my opposition analysis, I'd always watch behind the goals footage so you can see what their leading patterns were like, see how, like, if there's any of the small forwards coming in to block them or where they like to lead. Is it to the left or to the right? Like, they always have little cues. But Josh Kennedy, like, I used to watch his tapes and his leading patterns were the best. Like, they were amazing. And he had really, really good craft. And so, yeah, he was always a tough one to match up on.
You mentioned about that fire diminishing and burning out towards the end. Those years were tough for Brisbane Lions fans and players as well, particularly because you're giving your all and then not coming up trumps. But then looking now on what that era did and to where the Lions are now, and some of the players, including Harris Andrews, who, potentially you were mentoring at the time. Do you want to talk about how you're feeling now about the Lions and how those chapters that you were playing has played a role into where they are now?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I look back on it, and when I came to the club, the Lions were in their three-peat era, and then I feel like then when I played for that 10 years, it was a bit of a struggle. We're finding our feet, and then when I retired, then they came good again. But I look back on that period with guys that are still there, like Zorks, Harris Andrews, Ryan Lester, and then I think, it's about like setting those foundations and working through those tough times, because it can't always be good times, right? And I suppose I look back on it and think, as long as like I was competing every game, tried my heart out, and I hope the supporters and coaches and my teammates thought that as well. I look at them now and think, like, particularly those three, like how they've had to go through the hard times, plenty of hard times, but then their resilience and their ability to just keep persisting to then come out on the other side is just amazing, and couldn't be more happy for those boys, that's for sure. Just on Harris, I remember when we drafted Harris and he was 200 centimetres centre half back, and I remember thinking, what have you done? Like, to the recruiters, I'm like, 200 centimetres, he's going to turn like the Titanic. And then literally like the first training session when he rocked up and was training, I'm like, oh no, this dude's different. He reminded me of Dustin Fletcher from Essendon, who's one of the all-time fullbacks in those first couple of sessions, and now he's gone on to be one of the greatest backmen ever. So couldn't be more proud of him on the way he's been able to make an amazing career.
And then when he first started and you're towards the tail end of your career, in terms of some advice that you gave him and watching some of the moves that he did and the timings and precisions, do you feel a little bit proud that your little student's gone on to bigger things?
No, I definitely can't take any credit for that. But I do remember, like, he was a skinny kid. Hey, like when Harris showed up, he was super skinny, but he's been able to build a body, and now he's a very big man, but he's also so strong in the contest. Like, he's a great mark and he floats off, reads the ball in the air really well. But he's so strong in his one-on-ones, and rarely does he get beaten in a wrestle. So I think, I love that part of his game for sure. And I remember the other thing he's really good at is organising. So I think, again, when he came, he was a pretty quiet kid, but then getting out of his shell, became like a really big talker, which is really important. If you're only playing the back line and you're quiet, you're actually hurting your teammates. Like, you need to talk. And I say it now, like, ABC, always be communicating when you're in the back line, and it's a non-negotiable. And he does it really, really well. To the point where, like, I remember when he used to like be barking instructions on, and it was like, I remember just calling him the Big Chief, because he was just like, he was just running stuff down there. And yeah, he's an amazing player.
Before we go on to some of the lessons that you learnt from footy, I'd love to pick your brains about the miracle on grass, that particular game, and what the memories from that.
Yeah, it was funny. At the time we weren't a very good side, and Geelong were an amazing side. And it just happened to be Ash McGrath's 200th game. And yeah, I played a lot of footy with Ash. And yeah, it was an amazing game where we never really thought we were going to win, even to the point where, like, late in that game, they could have just killed the clock. But for some reason, they kept playing on, flicking the handball, and kicked it deep. I was playing on Big Tomahawk, and again, I don't really take many intercept marks. Usually I was just known for just punching the ball. So that particular game, I was just in a really good position. And when I marked it, I think there was 20 seconds on the clock. And again, it was just like, I just got to go. I obviously didn't know there was only 20 seconds, because you don't actually know on the field how long's left. But yeah, I remember I'd actually played on, like, accidentally, and the umpire's just saying, play on. So I ended up, like, just having to rush the ball and handball it to Elliot Yeo, and then it just went flick, 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 and then, yeah, Ash to kick that goal from outside 50 after the siren. We didn't have a lot of joy back then as a team, but that night was particularly a great night to celebrate Ash's 200th, and then to beat Geelong. It's always good beating Geelong. And yeah, who knew that? I thought it was a good win, but for it to, like, what is it? It's like 10 years on, it literally gets played. Like, I get messages still, like, every couple of months going, mate, big fella, miracle on grass, like, started with you. And it's funny, at the time I thought it was a good win, but yeah, for it to still be a great win now, yeah, it's pretty special.
That's awesome. Now, the lessons that you learnt in footy in regards to some of those dark days, about yourself, about the resilience, and all these other things or buzzwords you can use, and how that's translated into your life now. Do you want to share the sort of similarities between sport and life?
Yeah, it's a funny one. I suppose, yeah, just being a professional athlete and getting the most out of yourself. I think the lessons that I've learned, that's held me, is just, like, number one's work rate. It's like, always, like, Simon Black, one of the great players for Brisbane Lions, or great players of all time. He was just like, why was he so good? Because he got to so many contests. And I think if you get to as many contests as you can, you're a 50-50 chance at winning those contests. And I kind of use that in anywhere in life. So it's like, if it's in business, it's like, how many people can I get in front of? And they're not just going to come to you. And it's like in footy, the footy's just not going to come to you. Like, you've got to keep turning up and have a really high work rate to get to as many of those contests as possible, to give yourself a chance. I think that what I always say to people is, like, you've got a program to follow, and now, like, the support athletes have is amazing, from your physios, dietitians, strength and conditioning, and your coaches. There's just so much support, but it's like, but that's what everyone else has got, and that's what everyone else is doing. And what are you doing extra? If you just do the program, like, you'll just be as good as everyone else. And, like, in sport, yes, you're competing against the opposition, so you're kind of hoping they're doing less than what you're doing, but then you're also competing with your teammates. So it's like, if you're doing exactly what everyone else is doing, so is your teammates, then how are you going to rise above? And it's like always looking for extras. And a coach, they love those athletes that are just asking questions, asking what more can I do? What about this? Like the ones that think about the games. And then on the other parts, like, then how am I elevating myself against the rest of the competition as well? Because, yeah, I guess you're only hoping that they're doing less than what you are. But that's where I gained a heap of confidence. I remember midway through my career when I was in probably playing my best footy, like I knew I was doing more than everyone else, and I knew I was prepared against my opposition. So I was never nervous. I'd go out in the game like never ever nervous because I just knew I'd done everything, ticked every box, and I just knew I was going to perform at the best. And you know what? I might have got beaten, but it wasn't because I didn't prepare. Some days it's just not your day. And I knew also from an effort point of view, like I'd put everything on the line. So I'd leave the game. If I got beaten without any regrets, let's say he was just too good today. But then I remember at the back end of my career, like the last couple of years, I used to be so nervous because I kind of probably knew, well, one, like we probably weren't a very good side, but also I knew my body wasn't great and I wasn't like pushing myself like I used to. And so, yeah, I used to be really, really nervous. And funny, like in my last ever game, and my 200th last ever game, we played St Kilda, and I ended up having to play on Nick Rewalt, who was, again, very, very good player. Ended up kicking 9 goals on me in my last game. So I think it was time to hang up the boots after that game for sure.
Fascinating insights there in terms of nervousness around not being at the start of your career, but towards the end of the career, because maybe in your head you're thinking, I'm not as prepared or I'm not as confident because my body's maybe starting to slow down. Fantastic insights. Now, as part of the Scoreboard podcast, I always ask my guests a couple of questions. One is their scoreboard moment, which is a moment in their life, looping back potentially, that's quite vivid and quite clear. And then from that moment, things changed.
Yeah, it's probably looping back to that. There's probably a couple, right? So I grew up playing rugby league, and then I remember I got knocked out one game, split my chin open, playing rugby league. I would have been 13. And then mum said, you're not playing rugby league anymore. So I played touch football all through high school because we had sports excellence at my high school at Benalla State High, and a bit of volleyball as well. Anyway, I reckon I missed that physicality, and that's kind of why I got back into footy and why I probably loved it. Is because I missed that like combativeness and tackling and being aggressive. I didn't have an outlet. And then when I had a couple of mates that were playing at Surfers Paradise Footy Club, and I used to just go down and watch them. And they were short one day, and I was just sitting there watching. They're like, "Mate, do you want to play?" And I said, "I haven't got boots or anything." They're like, "It's all good. It's all good. Like you can we'll borrow some." And I remember I was like, "Yeah, but I'm wearing boxer shorts as well." And then they're like, "It's all good." So I had to like take my boxer shorts up, and then yeah, from that moment, like from watching my mates play to get involved, like my footy really like escalated quickly from that stage. And then it was probably that conversation where with Justin Lepage, where it was like I was playing forward ruck, was in and out of the side, probably wasn't going that well. And then just having that conversation with him saying, like, mate, I reckon you'd really like, there's an opportunity here for you if you want it and really go hard at it, because I reckon you can do it. And then, yeah, as soon as I went back, I was fortunate enough to then go on and play 200 games and the bulk of that in the backline. It's funny how like stuff sticks in your mind, because I remember at the end of that year, so I reckon I played the last like 4 or 5 games in the back line, and I played on Matthew Richardson, Barry Hall, Fraser Gehring. Like I played on these like all these big matchups, and I probably didn't win, but I didn't like embarrass myself, and it was like, right, I'm good at this. It was funny. I remember one of the senior players at the time just said, "Mate, I reckon well done on the back line because I reckon you were in a bit of trouble if you didn't go back." And I was like, "Oh, thanks." But yeah, it was definitely a turning point.
Mate, that's brilliant. And the other question I ask is around your all-time favourite sporting moment, something that you can watch over and over again. And I preface this that it can't be the miracle on grass or something that you're involved in.
Yeah, I think being a big cricket fan, I remember I got asked. I was lucky enough, like I got asked one time to be 12th man for the Brisbane Heat, which was pretty cool, and just to run some water one night.
Yeah, that's
And Shane
well,
Warne,
you can
and
include
Shane
yourself
Warne,
with this one.
what's that?
You can include yourself with this story for sure.
Oh yeah, sorry, I
Absolutely.
went off target. I've gone off.
No,
I've
no,
gone
no.
off.
But like, that's a pretty impressive that you
Um,
played for the Brisbane Heat.
and then it was the same night. So Warney was playing for the other team, and I remember, and like the cricketers sit on the same bench, and I remember Warney was like, he was meant to bat. Like it was a pretty close game. He was meant to bat, and he kept sending out blokes before him, and he was saying, I can't see. Someone else go." Which he ended up having to go out and bat. And but yeah, that was pretty cool. I've gone off topic, but what I was going to loop back to is I love my fast bowlers, right? So grew up watching Craig McDermott, Glenn McGrath. I think Craig McDermott, because he was a redhead, fiery redhead, probably can relate a little bit.
From the Gold Coast too.
Yeah, yep.
Yep. Or lived
But
in the
who
Gold Coast.
I love,
Certainly played around the Gold Coast. Yep.
but what I really loved was at the Gabba, Mitchell Johnson when he was firing, big left-hander, bowling bounces. I'm pretty sure it was against England, and
Yeah,
it
got
was just
30 odd,
like
30 odd for the series. I remember. Yep.
yeah, and I just remember watching that, just thinking like that intimidating, that aggression. Yeah, it was something that I absolutely loved.
I can't remember 07, 09 it was when he got 30 odd wickets in the series, and the battles that he had with KP and just the pure brute force of like watching, hey, Australia won the toss and elected to bowl, and you're like, let's go.
Here we go. And I think at the time, like I reckon Test cricket went through a stage where it was like the new form, like one day T20 was all the rage, and then like it was like Test cricket. It's like it takes so long. It's a bit boring. And then I remember watching that going, nah, like there's nothing about this that's boring. Like that's true gamesmanship or something. Like it's just an absolute battle, and it was amazing.
Dan, on our podcast, we've got a sponsor in SwiftX, and we thank SwiftX for being a partner of Scoreboard and SwiftX, Australia's most trusted cryptocurrency exchange. They've got over 1.2 million users in Australia and New Zealand, and also a big supporter of the Brisbane Lions over the last couple of years or so, and have also just put their name to the Super Rugby competition. But as part of their sponsorship with Scoreboard, we run a little segment called the Bucket List, which is powered by SwiftX as part of their new campaign, Where Can Crypto Take You? Dan, I'm curious about your sporting bucket list, all-time event that you'd love to attend live in person that you haven't attended yet.
Well, I reckon it'd be the Olympics 100-meter final.
Oh, yes.
Like I think maybe because I rate myself like I was once upon a time quick. That event, I think at the Olympics, it's one of the biggest events, and being able to see that live and the fastest men in the world. I remember watching Usain Bolt like on TV, just a big man. I think it was similar. He's 6'4", I think, and just like his power. It's something I really admired, and I think to be able to see that event. Maybe in Brisbane, hey? In
2032. We only got two chances. Really got LA and Brisbane, really.
Yeah.
Beyond Brisbane, but yeah.
would be pretty amazing.
Maybe gout.
Exactly. Yeah. So, the 100, 200 meter finals would be very, very cool.
There you go. Maybe crypto can take you to the Olympics. Now, one final question for you, Dan, is around someone that wants to be a professional athlete, that person that, like you, growing up in 2025, going, I'm 15, I want to be a professional athlete, maybe play footy, maybe do something. What's some advice you give them?
Always remember, like, as a young kid, just being aware that you're going to have to sacrifice. Going to have to sacrifice those, like, Saturday nights hanging out with your mates. And just on that, it's like probably surrounding yourself with the right people too. At that age group, like if you're coming through high school, the people you associated with like have such a big impact. So it's like surrounding yourself with the right people who are a really positive influence on you. Then also knowing that you're going to have to sacrifice a lot if you really want to make it. And then from there, it's probably saying like, do I actually want to make it, or does it just sound like a good idea? And if you actually want to make it and you actually want to commit to it, go all in. And then, you know what? If it doesn't eventuate, no regrets, right? You've had a crack, you've gone all in, and then you can look back at it. And if you haven't made it, you can look back and go, you know what? Like I tried my best, and that's all you can ever do. But genuinely, like I always think, failure has no answer to persistence. You're going to get knocked back every now and then. There's going to be some little bumps in the road. But if you keep persisting, there is no way you can be stopped.
Dan Merritt, on that note, what a way to finish, by the way, of your first long-form podcast. I really do appreciate you coming on and having a chat today on Scoreboard and sharing your insights into your life, ups and downs and everything in between as a player that played 200 AFL games, now is back involved in the game and helping young players and women's players develop into their better selves. I wish you all the best and looking forward to catching up and supporting where I can.
No worries. Thanks, Chris.